Welcome to another episode about Indiana politics. I'm Deb Chubb, and wonderful to have Arielle Brandy here with me today. I have watched Arielle over the last couple of years. Just really, you are just a rock star in politics and the Democratic Party in particular, and are
Thank
now
you.
the president of the Indiana Young Democrats. And so I want you to tell us a little bit more about yourself because there is so much, and I want you to say what is important to you. So tell us more about yourself.
So hi everybody. I'm so glad to be here with you, Deb. I know we've been trying to get this going for a while now, so I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation. But like Deb said, my name is Arielle Brandy. I currently serve as the president of Indiana Young Democrats. I have been a part of the organization for 12 years now, so I am a veteran in this work and been a part of this organization for a long time. So stepping into presidency has been an honor because I've been able to represent us previously as National Committee woman, talking about Indiana and how we do have Democrats here and really trying to get the DNC to invest in us. And I think we are getting closer to that with some of the strides that we have been able to make here in our state. But also currently serve as executive director for I Vote For, which was a project that I co-founded alongside some women from the Pete for America campaign that I'm really, really excited about. We help equip women with the tools that they need to be able to learn how to tell their story and use some relational organizing tools to have meaningful conversations about values and what that investment looks like in politics. And then I also serve as alumni chair for Hoosier Women Forward, getting women, Democratic women all across the state into leadership positions, whether it's running for office, government, nonprofit, whatever their heart desires to do, we help equip them with the tools they need to be able to lead. So I do that and a bunch of other things. And I'm a mom.
And you're a
I have
mom.
2 daughters,
Wow.
which, has turned me into a teacher now from home virtually.
I can't imagine having young children at this point in my life. That is just one of the biggest problems with this whole negligence among the federal government in handling this pandemic. In my opinion, I sit on the school board, and so just the notion that we have just asked parents to give up their lives and become teachers without really any support is
Yeah.
just it's unbelievable. So okay, so my big question, and I want to talk about a few different things. You've had some great experience on the Pete Buttigieg campaign, and I really want to talk about that too because I think that's important. And I
Yeah.
want to, of course, acknowledge the role that African American women played in the success in Georgia. And I know that you have studied that event like many of us, and I know that you are going to be using that to inform everything you do going forward. So that leads me to my big question is what are we going to do to make this Democratic Party in Indiana work better, be more successful, be more inclusive, and really upgrade?
Yeah, yeah. I think one, it starts with investing in communities of color. And when I talk about investing, I don't just talk about money and resources. I talk about actually like investing when it comes to candidates of color that decide to run. We need to be supporting them. We need to be giving them the tools and the resources that they need to be able to run effective campaigns that are actually going to allow them to win. We don't invest as much as we should into our candidates of color, whether they're incumbents or they're running for the very first time. I think we need to do that. We also need to invest in our voters of color, in the Black community, the Latino community, and the AAPI community, and our LGBTQ community as well. It's more than just saying that we want to get them registered and expect them to actually come out and vote. We need to be actually having meaningful conversations with them and hearing them on their issues, so that it's more than just connecting them to a candidate and saying, hey, come and vote for me and expecting them to do that. It doesn't work like that anymore. We need to be investing in their communities all year round, all of the time, and not just when it's election time. Because Black voters know when you're just coming to their church only to be able to campaign. We know when you're just coming into our neighborhoods just to be able to ask us if we're going to show up to vote for you as a candidate. As a party, we need to make that investment happen all of the time. And we need to be having conversations with folks in these communities way past election cycles, and it not just be all about candidates all of the time, but the actual issues that they have.
I want to press you a little bit on that because, we've talked about that before. So I want to ask you, what does that look like, in real terms? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been able to do it here in St. Joe County. This is why you see that our county we go blue. And we've been able to see a change in, the demographics that show up. If you look at precinct numbers, the precincts that are showing up and changing the course of a race, you see it happening in the Black and Latino communities. But that's because we're having meaningful community conversations with them all of the time. We saw it happen when we had some police shooting incidents here. The city decided to organize community roundtables about how citizens could get involved in the policing process. We have our school board. When they were, trying to get a referendum passed, they were having conversations with students, with their parents, with teachers, actually having these meaningful conversations all of the time, and not just when they were trying to get something passed. But it helped because they had already built those relationships with the community. It led to the referendum passing. When you want to have conversations about what happens in the neighborhoods, you're reaching out to your neighborhood associations and you're building relationships with the folks in those neighborhoods all of the time, not just when issues are happening. And that's something that, a lot of us don't do. We only come around when it's convenient or when it's time to run, but it's making that investment in talking to folks in the community all of the time, whether you're just popping up at a coffee shop or calling somebody on the phone or figuring out who the neighborhood gatekeeper is. Like, those are the things that we have to do and actually invest in. And sometimes it takes us talking to folks who may not identify as Democrats right away, because they may be independent, or they may just be folks who have never voted before. And there are so many Hoosiers in the state that have not voted before that we have yet to tap into, because we haven't had any conversations with them. So it looks a bunch of different ways, but I think it's also tapping into organizations that are already doing the work and forming partnerships with them. It can't just solely just be us as a party. We have to be able to branch out and find different organizations that are willing to meet with us and have some conversations as well.
And how do you see the Indiana Young Democrats, playing a role in that process?
Yeah, so a lot of the work that we do, I'm very proud of the fact that we have one of the most, not just diverse, but one of the most inclusive boards that we've had in our state's history. We, for the first time in our state's history, have a Black woman, myself, and our vice president is a Black queer man. That's not happened in our state before. And also the rest of our board is Latino and LGBTQI, like everybody's from all over, Jewish. There has been in the past limitations on some of that stuff. And now we have opened it up to bringing in even some folks who at one time probably did not feel as if they belonged a part of the Democratic Party. And I said, we want them. They're young, they're hungry, they're doing the work in their community. Bring them in, because this is a space for all of us to figure out how we can make this better. And so I built an executive committee that is inclusive and comes from all different walks of life, all different corners of the state. Some of them have been activists before and did not feel as if they would ever be a part of a Democratic organization. But they're doing great work in their community, and they're able to mobilize, they're able to identify and recruit candidates. And we've seen that happen. And so that's the part in the role that we played here in 2020, was not only just bringing in more young people into the fold of the party, but giving them the space to be able to talk about some of the most important issues. It's just unfortunate that we came at this in the middle of a pandemic and a moment of, civil unrest, but we had some really hard and tough conversations as an organization, and we were very vocal about where we stood. And we did not always see that from the National Democratic Party, let alone the state party sometimes. But we knew that there was so much at stake, not only just for young people, but just Hoosiers of color in general. And so we wanted to be at the forefront of that. And so we decided that we were going to invest not only just time and energy into that, but actually when we were phone banking for candidates, we were making sure that we were talking to Black voters. We were making sure we were talking to Latino voters. We were very intentional about the work that we're doing. And I think that that's what we have to do as a party. You have to be intentional about where you're investing your time and energy, because you only get one time or one shot to try to make those changes. So that's some of the work that we've been doing, and supporting candidates that align with our values and that support us in leadership too.
So, and that's great. And I just want to highlight too, I think you had mentioned before, you know, on MLK Day, having a day of service. And I believe that that is something that the Democratic Party really needs to, on a local level, really, you know, up their game. Being involved in those sorts of community projects, you know, that's the way you can reach people. So, and I did want to, and you're doing a terrific job of that. And I want to say too,
Thank
I
you.
have popped into your Zoom meetings, even though I'm not really young.
No, we welcome
Somehow they did
everybody.
it. Nobody noticed. So, so I got to sit in there and just, you know, hearing from all of the members and, you know, and looking at them. And it was just a wonderful example of great diversity in that group. And you could tell there was enthusiasm and there was just excitement about being in there. And I think that's really a tribute to your leadership. So
Thank you.
I could tell that people really admire you, and I think that's just wonderful. And you're, you know, you have a great power for in bringing on and inspiring enthusiasm. And so, you know, one of the other things I wanted to mention too about the Georgia experience, that's in history, I guess will go down as the Georgia experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but one of the things that I saw that kind of goes to this topic is that they really made a point. They did raise a lot of money. They got a lot of money. Stacey Abrams went around the country and was able to make
Yes.
a great case and really did get a lot of money. So that made a big difference. But they used that money to, you know, bring it right to the community. Literally having just events in these communities all the time. Having, you know, just food trucks, you know, come along and having a block party. Really just coming into the community and bringing everything to where people are. And as we know, that's, you know, that's,
Yeah, and you have to meet people where they are, and that's one of the marks that we miss sometimes, is that we, like I said, we're just knocking on doors and making phone calls during election time, and then when that's over, we're not doing anything further than that, you know. And you see it with a lot of these community organizations. They're, like you said, they're doing the block parties, they're already doing the coffee conversations. Why are we not leaning into those things that are already existent? Because what we don't want to do as organizers or party leaders is come into a space where something already exists and try to recreate it. And a lot of the times that's what we like to try to do. And we have to make sure that we're not like this is people's homes. This is their community where they've been invested for a long time, where they've already built and mobilized themselves. We need to be leaning into those folks. You know, you look at Stacey Abrams, and when she talks about the work that she's done, she does not just accredit it to herself. She talks about all of the other Black women that had organizations that existed before hers that have been doing this work, and how they came together because they had one common goal. And that's what needs to happen. There are so many organizations that are doing, you know, great work around voting rights or, you know, community development, and we need to be having conversations with those folks and bringing them into the fold of what we're trying to do.
so, and I love, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, you probably are, but in Vanderburgh County, Edie Hardcastle, you know, adopted and just, well, actually she recruited and pulled the system into her county, which is just outstanding, called the Neighborhood Leaders Program. And really I think the real crux of that system is the neighborhood leaders, like precinct committee chairs in the Democratic Party, similar to that structure, but neighborhood leaders adopt 35 households. And that's it. And they work with those households year round. And they develop relationships. And so they know when people move or move in or move out. They know when kids are turning 18 to get registered. They know who needs a ride to the polls because they know them. That's their neighborhood. And so, again, I think it goes to what you've been talking about, is this really community-based relationship building program. And I really love that. And one of the other real benefits of that program that she's put in there is the data. because people are working with their neighborhood friends, they're acquiring organic data about their neighbors and their neighborhoods. And when you kind of start loading that all up, that turns into a very significant and accurate and helpful database that that could really help candidates as they move forward. So I just think that's a terrific program. I wonder if you're hearing what you're thinking.
No, and that's similar to, I mean, ideally that's what our precinct committee folks are supposed to be doing. And I say supposed to because not in every corner of the state are precinct people actively doing what they're supposed to do or the duties that are given to them as a precinct person. Because they're supposed to be, like I said, checking in on the voters in their precinct and making sure that they have the rights that they need or that they're all registered. And like you said, making sure that the information is accurate. If somebody moves, being able to know that. Those are the roles of the precinct people, aside from just showing up when there's a caucus or when, party elections roll around. That's the only time usually you will see active precinct committee folks actually doing the work that needs to be done. But there's something to say in the fact that they could be doing exactly what you talked about. Yeah. And what a lot of them do here in St. Joseph County. So our precinct folks, we do have a good amount of them that are actively involved in their precincts doing that kind of work. But when you talk about across the state, what needs to be done, I don't think we're seeing that happen. And so that's why you get programs like the one in Vandenberg that is working so well, is because we need that community investment to be able to happen. So
right, I agree. It sounds like you're duplicating something that's already in place, and it doesn't make much sense. But that's the result of the poor implementation, I guess. And many of the precinct committee chairs that I've spoken with and contacted often just say they don't know. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And so that, that's another problem, that has to be corrected.
Because that falls on the role of the chair to explain what that is supposed to be, or, the leadership of the party. And I feel like we haven't done a good job at that. Yeah.
Right. So the other difference with this neighborhood leaders program is that it's a much smaller geographical area than a precinct. Precinct should be 1,000 people, and this is really just a smaller portion. But I always like to remind people that it's a precinct committee chair. There's supposed to be a committee, and the precinct committee chair is, really supposed to be engaging and recruiting volunteers onto a committee. So, so in that way, it also could be the same. If it were implemented correctly, it could have that same benefit of working with a smaller group, just like the neighborhood leaders program. So yeah, I agree with you. It does seem odd that this was kind of a, same new, but the same. And
whatever works to get people engaged and out to vote and, doing what their civic duty. I mean, that's all the better.
I know. Like, I've been in education for a long time, and it's like that in education. It's like someone will come up with this brand new idea with a brand new name, a new shiny box with a new picture, and you're like, isn't that like the old thing, that we did a couple years? Like, yes. Yeah, okay, new name, okay. But so I think that I guess that happens everywhere. So I do want to talk to you too about your experience with the Pete Buttigieg campaign. I think all of us who've been involved in politics for many years has that. That one campaign that really was pivotal. For me, it was the Howard Dean campaign. It just felt so different. And I think the Pete Buttigieg campaign was like that for many people. It just felt so different. And I think it was. And you were, played such a big role in that. And I just have to say that I watched your interview when you were lucky enough to interview Chasten on his book release, which was just wonderful. And congratulations to you. And I watched it, and it was just an outstanding interview. But there was this one just moving moment when he stopped the conversation and said, I want to acknowledge that you as an African-American woman did not have the same experience as I did. And I thought it was so touching that he made that point and made it so forcefully that he wanted to see you
Yeah.
and see your experience. And so I just want to ask you to respond to that and tell me more about the experience and tell me what he was talking about.
Yeah. So, I have grown to know and love Pete and Chasten for the last, what feels like 10 years. Obviously knew Pete when he served as mayor, but aside from him just being mayor, he was a friend and he always supported all of the work that I did here in the community. And anytime I needed something, a resource, or just somebody to be there to help get the crowd pumped up, or there was an issue that was happening in the Black or Latino community, being able to bring him into the fold to actually, help address and alleviate some things that we had, he was always there. He was, like you said, the campaign was different because when he served as mayor, he was the most accessible public figure or elected official that we had ever had in a very, very long time. And so to be able to have somebody who served in that role be so accessible, so willing to listen and want to actually change something, it was different. And so I'm grateful that over the years, it also led me to get to know Chasten as a friend too. Aside from him just being, the husband of our mayor, he was a friend. We would go to events together. I would just see him out in the community. He was always just there. And over the campaign, we obviously grew closer because we did a lot of trips together. We were on the trail a lot. I was usually always introducing him or introducing Pete. We were having roundtable conversations with folks talking about the city that we loved. And they also, too, were able to see a lot of how the media attacked the Black women or Black staffers that were a part of the campaign. And even a lot of the Black voices that were coming out of South Bend that were in support of Pete. There was a lot of media erasure of what we were saying that was in a positive light. We would try to run stories, or we would try to speak out against things that were being said about our city and what we knew was true. And we were, discredited or not utilized in the way that we should have been. And we saw a lot of people on social media say that we were fake or that we weren't actual real people. And being on the trail and having conversations with folks, everybody always wanted to talk about, the issues that Pete had in the Black and Latino community, but they never wanted to talk about how he actually did the work to solve those issues. And so when you are somebody like me who would come in and say, I understand what you're saying, but this is how it's untrue, and I'm going to explain to you why, to then be shut down by folks, or for folks to not want to believe my own lived experience. I've lived in South Bend for 30 years, aside from the time that I went to college. And to be in spaces where I'm speaking my own personal story, my own firsthand experience under Pete's leadership, to then be told that it was not true because the media said this or they said that, or we heard from somebody else in South Bend that it was different. It was a discrediting of me, but also an erasure of me as a Black woman. And we saw that happen so many times. And after a while, it takes a toll on you. I mean, when you're a Black staffer trying to do this work and you constantly are put up against the fact that what you're putting out there, what you're saying isn't true, that it isn't valid, it's hurtful. And they saw that. And, it was hard for us when we as staffers were trying to uplift our candidate and talk about why we supported him. We were called all kinds of things from folks online, in public, because they thought that obviously what we were saying wasn't true and that we were just being bought to be able to say those things. So, we dealt with a lot, and it took a toll because we believed that just as everybody else had saw him as special in this election cycle, we knew exactly that's what it was. He was a once in a lifetime candidate. And you saw that he went from being a small town mayor to being a top tier presidential candidate, top 3. Yeah. And nobody expected that. And that was because of the hard work that we did. And it was because of the hard work that a lot of the Black and brown voters in South Bend were speaking out against what they had to say about him. And, I was very proud of the work that I did around South Bend Stories on the campaign. I helped found and create, alongside some really great staffers, utilizing authentic voices from South Bend. And so it was my job to find the people in the community and help prepare them to share their stories. And then we cultivated that into what you would see in our ads, what you would see on social media, the heartfelt videos that we used to tell the story of Pete's mayorship. It was because we used real people in South Bend and we used voices of color to help bring that to light. So it was frustrating when you're somebody who knows these people, loves these people, and bringing them into the fold of a national campaign for, the media and for other folks to say that what they're saying is not true. That hurts. So,
Wow.
Chasten was somebody who would listen to my frustrations around that. He would see it himself. He saw it for a lot of us, and he knew us too. And so it's hard. And that's what we see a lot just in general when it comes to Black people, when they speak out about the issues that are most important to them or that they know to be a lived experience. We see it get shut down constantly by the media, by other people who are just the naysayers and just, have their own agendas. But we see that happen all the time. And unfortunately, that was only, a small bit of my experience on the trail and on the campaign, but not the whole experience. So it did give me the opportunity, like I said, to share my story. And I'm so grateful for the fact that I was a Black woman in a senior leadership position on a presidential campaign, and that I went across the country and I told my story. And Pete and Chasten allowed me to be authentic and talk about my experience in South Bend, my experience as a mother, my experience being Black in politics. They gave me the platform to do that. And that speaks volumes to anything that folks tried to erase from us. It gave me the opportunity to do that. So I'm grateful for that. And that's what he was coming from, and what he was referring to is the erasure of our voices, and how he knows how hard that was for me.
Wow. I mean, what an experience. And I don't know, it's just so heartbreaking in so many ways. And to know that, that's not limited to politics.
No.
I mean, we hear about it in healthcare all the time,
Yes.
just the enormous multiple by which African Americans are, subject to more risks in healthcare because they're dismissed and not listened to.
Yep.
Particularly women and maternal health. And it's just an issue. And I don't. I wish I had some answers. I wish I could figure out how to fix this. And of course, I guess we can hope that after January 20th, there'll be some light at the end of the tunnel. And
I hope so.
this just prevailing, this discrimination and just isolation of people, and they're sticking with their own tiny little sect. It will fall apart, and when people will see how important and how beneficial it is to everybody to be hearing all these different voices. So, and one of the things I remember from that interview with Chasten was that, he said, look at me, I get to write a book and go around the country. And just kind of pointing out, again, how different the experience is. But I want to say, you should write a book. You should.
I have gotten that a lot over the past couple of years. Just not only when I was out on the trail, but just when I'm talking to young people or folks like people like you, or when I'm interviewing, people are like, you have a story
You do.
to tell, and you should probably write a book. So I've definitely been thinking about it. I have a lot that I would love for not only just women, but other women of color, and for young girls to be able to hear about my experience, because I'm just like them. And so even though I've given, over a decade dedicated to, public service already, I've only been, my first big girl job in politics was in 2016. Before then, I was just a volunteer and a community organizer, just trying to figure it out. So you're looking at from 2016 up until now, all that has happened in my career in such a short amount of time. Like, it didn't come just easy. There was a lot of hardship that happened along the way. As you know, being a Black woman in politics is not as glamorous as it looks when we're speaking or talking about what we're trying to get done. It's not easy. And so definitely have a story to tell. Just need to figure out how I formulate
definitely
it
do.
and how we do it.
Just that experience is so kind of unique, and illustrative of what was happening during that time. And so it would be so meaningful, I think, to so many people for you to tell that story, and you tell it in such a great way.
Thank you.
So, all right, so we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you, before we go, we need some parting words of wisdom. So what do you have for us, Arielle?
Oh, parting words of wisdom. Well, I know that we all are looking forward to next week, inauguration, and hopefully turning a page to a new era of a new presidency and new leadership, and just, feeling that relief of no longer being under the dictatorship of Donald Trump. Yes, absolutely. We're all looking forward to that. But I want us to not forget the hard work that will need to be done after that. We, unfortunately, as a country, will have a lot of cleaning up to do, a lot of fixing, and there are still so many people who are without jobs, that have lost loved ones, that are literally struggling to get by day to day. And so while we're hopeful for a better country, there's just so much work that needs to be done here in our state. So please be paying attention to what's happening at the State House. There's so much important legislation that is up. I really want us to make sure that we're paying attention to what's happening there. We need to be paying attention to what's going to be happening in 22. There are a lot of very important seats that are going to be up in 22 here in the state of Indiana. I want us to be thinking about that. But most importantly, I just want us to be healthy and to, be happy and connect with the people that are going to be supportive of you. It's a very hard time right now. So find your support system, find your gals and you guys and everybody that's supportive of you, and just lean into them, because while next week will be great, we saw what just happened at the Capitol, and it could happen again, unfortunately. And I just want everybody to be prayerful, but also just very vigilant of what's happening, and there for, our Black and Brown sisters and brothers, and keeping them uplifted and supporting them, because their voices are what's going to be the most important from here on out. And so I want to make sure that we're leaning into what we just saw this summer with the civil unrest, and that we, as not only just myself as a woman of color, but folks like you, Deb, really leaning into, being better allies and utilizing yourself to just be better for those communities, because they're hurting and they're dying, and they're the folks that are going to need the most help when we're coming out of this and looking at next week. So those are just some of my parting words, and I just sending all the love and light to everybody out there, because we all need it right now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I can feel it. Feels good. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Arielle. I hope that we will be talking again very soon.
Absolutely.
And I am just so excited to watch what you're doing, because it is really wonderful. And, I just want to support it in any way that I can.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again. And we'll see you next time.